Now I'm going to ask Mr. Dan Phillips to start off the rest of the meeting today with his personal story about his struggle with hepatitis C.
What the hell is hepatitis C? That was the thought that was going through my mind in April of 2001 when I was diagnosed with it. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dan Phillips, and it's a pleasure to be here tonight in Vancouver at the Canadian Hepatitis C Second Conference. And over the next 25 minutes, I'm going to share a 4-year journey with you that I've had battling the sneaky disease, hepatitis C. For 46 years of my life, I had excellent health. I was never ill. I never even had childhood diseases. I enjoyed coaching hockey for 27 years. I coached baseball and football in between. I'm married. I've got 4 boys. Life was great. I got to thinking that maybe perhaps I was bulletproof. And it was a big letdown when I found out that I wasn't. The first signs of hepatitis showed up in May of 2000. And this picture was taken in Calgary. I was on business. I was living in actually Swift Current, Saskatchewan at that time. And I was driving back and forth. And I was staying in a hotel and banged my legs. And when I got up in the morning, my legs swole up completely. Larger than I've ever seen them. The injuries, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't really think that I'd hurt them that bad. But I noticed that the edema that was in my legs was just, it was incredible. And when I got back to Swift Current, my wife was there, and she kept nagging at me to go see the doctor. And I went and seen him, and the doctor asked me if I was traveling quite a bit. And I mentioned to him that yes, and he said, well, he said, it's kind of, truck drivers did kind of the same thing. He says, and perhaps what I'll do is give you some anti-inflammatory medicine. So during that summer, I was kind of up and down and up and down, and it did, I don't know if it was doing anything or not, but we had a real wreck of a summer. I was in the midst of changing organizations. We were in the midst of relocating to Manitoba. We lost both of the kids' grandmothers. My mother passed away, my wife's mother passed away. So we had a lot of stress happening at that time. We got into Manitoba, and I was really starting to take on a lot of weight. And it was starting to affect me. And I guess the key thing is that I was really coughing bad. And I thought, well, I had a real bad cough, and I couldn't figure out where the weight was coming from. And my wife, of course, was encouraging me all the time, to go see the doctor. And I went to see a local doctor down in Boyce Bay, Manitoba, and I said, look, I said, just give me some cough mixture, I'll be out of your hair, and there'll be nothing more said about it. And he took a look at me and he said, Dan, he says, I think there's something wrong here. And he physically grabbed me by the arm and waltzed me down to the blood clinic. He says, there's something wrong, I don't know what it is, but he says, you're going to be coming back for blood tests until we find out. And I was back and forth with blood tests every second day. And prior to that, the only blood test I had in my life was when I got married, and I wasn't that fussy about it. So I was really getting used to the blood tests. But he gave me high doses of diuretics to relieve the fluid. My feet would swell up so I couldn't get my socks on. I couldn't get my shoes on. I was having trouble getting my pants on because my waist was really was full of ascites, and it was really a horrible thing to go through. They couldn't diagnose exactly what was wrong with me at that time. So they sent me to see a doctor in Brandon. They did quite a few more blood tests, more examinations, but we still didn't have any answers. I was in Boise, Manitoba for 4 months, and just out of the blue, my organization asked me to transfer to Winnipeg. They had a different position for me. And that was a kind of a break because there were some excellent medical facilities with specialists who deal strictly with the liver. And I had an appointment to see to see a doctor at the Health Science Center in April 29th, I guess it was, of 2001. And we got that far. And if you can take a look at this picture here, you can see where the jaundice had set in. Because I'm completely yellow as opposed to the baby that I'm holding right there. And the eyes, the skin is completely yellow. Leading up to where I was diagnosed, and this is a few days after I was diagnosed, I had a pneumonia attack at work on about April 11th. And I developed a flap from pneumonia building up in my system. My liver wasn't working very well, and I had a tremendous buildup of ammonia, which was causing me to develop a lack of muscle control, and my mind was slipping on me quite regularly. I didn't know what was happening. I'd never been sick before in my life. And I phoned one of the hospitals. They didn't give me very good advice. So I decided that I was going to drive home and see my wife and get this thing straightened out. So I left the office. I was very sick in the office. I vomited all over the place. My secretary asked me where I'm going, and I said, I'm heading home. Don't worry about it. I think I've got the flu or something. I'll just shake it. That was a big mistake. I got into my truck, drove down Fermor, and actually turned on to St. Anne's, which are major intersections in Winnipeg, and I was half conscious and half in somewhere else. Amazingly enough, I didn't hit anybody or kill anybody, but at one time I was going down St. Anne's up on the sidewalk with my truck. That's what I remember. I missed my place and ended up 2 houses down on my neighbor's lawn. My wife had been called. She pushed me over in the truck and took me to the hospital. We didn't have a family doctor up there. The physician in charge admitted me, and it just happened to be that there was a gastroenterologist there by the name of Dr. Wally. He had a good idea what was wrong with me. He took me off the diuretics and got my diet straightened out. I was eating far too much protein for a man with a failing liver, and my body wasn't passing any waste. So we got that straightened out. Then he said, look, I want you to come down to my office. And he said, I want to do some tests on you and I want to find out what's going on. I went down there after 4 days stay in the hospital. He did some blood tests and I seen him a few days after that. The news, however, wasn't very good. I had hepatitis C. He says, Danny, I had hepatitis C. He says, there's not really any sustainable cure right now, he says. Your liver's in a cirrhosis state. And he said, I'm afraid that it might last a year. Well, my wife was there and I looked at him and I said, I'm not afraid to die. I said, that's not even an issue. I said, everybody's going to die. I said, but what it does, it wrecks my plans. I said, I promised my wife that my 4 boys would get post-secondary education. And I said, I promised my wife that we'd have a good retirement. So I said, what we need to do is find some solutions. Dr. Wally took me under his wing and he set things up at the Health Science Center, where they have a very good liver clinic, and that's when the adventure began. There's a picture of me at Father's Day. We hadn't told my sons what the verdict was with me. They knew there was something wrong, but they wanted to hear from me. I had one in college, one working out of college, but he was working in Alberta. We had everybody home for Father's Day, and that's where we broke the news to them. Is that I had hepatitis C, I needed a liver transplant, which we knew nothing about, and things don't look all that great right now. Some of the food restrictions and the diet restrictions that I was on was just terrible. That was our first summer in Manitoba, and I wasn't used to being from Alberta and Saskatchewan. I wasn't used to the humidity. The food was okay, but going on to the water restrictions and being restricted to 1,100 milliliters a day was absolutely terrible. And the humidity in Winnipeg at that time, I kind of blended it across between the heat of the prairies, which is Alberta, Saskatchewan, and the humidity of Vancouver. It was so hot and ugly is that you really didn't need, all you need to do is carry a bar of soap. You didn't need to shower because the sweat took care of the rest. One of the things that the terrible part about it is that when you have hepatitis C, your mind, at that stage, your mind starts to slip a bit, and you're not maybe as coherent as you'd like to be. And this is at my son's graduation at the end of June, so that's about 2 weeks later from Father's Day. And I look pretty shabby there. You can see the ascites in my lower abdomen, and